Pearl and Serene. You two are like world famous as Trim Healthy Mama. People listen to your podcast. It's just simply amazing. They've been to your store, they've done your programs. I've heard from my audience that they absolutely love you. So I am super excited to finally have you on my show to talk about a variety of different things. We're going to dive into so many different subjects today. It's just going to be a big party, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, we love being reunited with you because you've been on our podcast twice, hopefully many more times. And yeah, we've got a lot in common, I think.
Oh, so much in common. That's why this is going to be a good time. And I see you back on my show multiple times as well, because I know you have a book coming out. We won't give away too much, but I know that the listeners have been anxiously awaiting the next one. So
we feel like we've been pregnant with this book for like the eternal pregnancy, like 3 years, and we're still, I don't know.
It's
actually
about to be birthed. Yeah. We're hoping
we're in the transition from hell, actually.
well, I mean, but that's what's going to make it worth it, right? That's what's going to make people go out and grab it because they've been anxiously awaiting it. So I love it.
Yeah, it's called Trim Healthy Wisdom, and really it's about coming into this time of wisdom for us women. I'm postmenopause, Serene's late perimenopause, and so many of our readers and listeners are in this stage and they're confused.
Well, everything changes, right? Yeah. It's like everything that worked, it felt so neat and simple and easy, and all of a sudden it's like, is my body betraying me, or is there something wrong with all that I've done this whole time? I mean, it's just everything's topsy-turvy at this time, but yeah, there are tips and tricks to make it such a fantastic season.
Well, I'm going to springboard off of that then and jump right into that, because I talk about bioidentical hormone replacement a ton on the show. So let's start with, what are those things that you noticed used to work and now they don't work so well? And what body changes have you noticed?
Well, for me, it was absolute metabolism. I mean, Serene and I have heralded this movement of eating and wise eating for women. We started off as premenopausal women. We're in our baby season and having children. And, we applied this way of eating and it works spectacularly. We stated our goal weights. Well, I certainly did, until I reached late perimenopause and I did all the same things. And I was noticing, I mean, I'm tall, you can't really tell, but I got this belly weight and my bum flattened. And at the same time, my belly started kind of sticking out. And I was like, what is this? I mean, and I did all the things I was still doing and it wouldn't work. And then I went and got my A1C and it jumped up from a beautiful 5 into like 5.5. And all these different things were happening.
And you started to tweak the diet and maybe like expand the window between dinner and breakfast, and then not eat breakfast till 10, and then to kind of lower the calories a little bit. You tweaked it to the point where I'm like, Pearl, this is opposite of what we teach. It's just like, well, I got to do something.
I know, and I did all the things, and my muscle wasting was ferocious.
I said to Pearl, I'm like, Pearl, do you want to be one of those little wizened ladies upstairs, like with the small shoulders and the small arms?
Yeah, because
I was
eating no calories. And I was also, and then my body was in this furious, fast pace, like shed your muscle. You don't have your testosterone anymore. You don't have your anabolic hormones. So it was just wasting off me. And then I was getting a tummy, and I
didn't see your tummy, but
no, but I saw it. You know where you're your best. And I was like heralding this movement, and I thought, if I'm going through this, I mean, women, they need answers. And so it was digging deep, and it was finding them. And guess what? Finding them. And I'm thriving at 53 when I wasn't thriving at 49.
And guess what happened? All my whole life, her being the big sister, she got to pull me down the stairs by my hair if I didn't clean our bedroom, because we shared a bedroom. And it was always like awful with her being the big sister. But then all of a sudden it was brilliant, because she got to go through the hell first, tell me about it, warn me. So I just jumped on bioidentical hormones before it all happened.
There you go.
So I just jumped on during peri. She's like, Serene, little sis, if I can tell you anything, don't go through what I went through. Like, get on the train now.
Yeah.
And did you avoid all those symptoms by jumping on in perimenopause? There you go. Yep.
Yeah, she's on. She hasn't lost her muscle. She hasn't lost her metabolism. She hasn't gone through the brain fog and the absolute. I was terrified of my memory. I thought I had early onset dementia. I couldn't remember anything. And that was the scariest thing for me, actually, because I have to be kind of on,
Yeah.
And I wasn't on. And so eventually, I thought, but I was the natural kind, right? We're natural and we're country. So I was like, I want to do this naturally first. I want to try and get through this time without putting hormones into my body.
Weird.
I
Because
know.
our first book decades ago, like over a decade ago, Pearl wrote all the stuff about bioidentical hormones in it because she was a little bit of a nerd. All she used to do as her hobby, whenever she got free time, she would just study about, bioidentical hormones. She would lurk on like groups as different liaison names and like be just trying to get
Yeah,
behind
but when it
all
came
the
to the time
information.
of it, I was scared of breast cancer.
Yeah.
I had this fear. I'm like,
because you had the fibrocystic
yeah,
breast.
I had fibrocystic breast. I was always in breast pain, and I was like, I don't think I should do it to myself. I think I'm high risk. I'm high risk for breast cancer with all these lumpy breasts. So I didn't do it. But then the hot flashes got so bad. The no sleep got so bad. I was a mess. I drenched my sheets every night. I was just one of those ladies. I had terrible hot flashes.
Yeah.
And so I bit the bullet. I got on bioidentical hormones. It took a couple of years. I got tweaked. I got my thyroid optimized. I was cold all the time. I slow metabolism. And then with, food and movement tweaks, I mean,
She started resistance training.
yeah, I am a
But
new woman.
I remember you saying to me, Serene, I used to have to wake up in the morning and say, Pearl, the grass is green and the sky is blue. You should be happy. And she's like, now the sky is blue and the grass is so green. And it's like happiness is just like falling on me. I don't have to pull up my big girl socks to have a positive mood because the hormones really affected you too.
Definitely.
The bioidentical hormones really gave you this mood lift.
And they do that. So obviously you tested and you were low in all three hormones. So
I
you
was
started,
tanked.
yeah.
My
you
T
started
was they
testosterone.
could not detect my testosterone. It was below range. It was
Actually, our
less than
80-year-old
zero.
mother had more testosterone than Pearl.
Oh my God. I've seen
think-
women like that too. Yeah. I
Yeah.
give them awards. I'm like, here you go. You get the award for first place
Yeah.
of having the lowest testosterone I've ever seen.
I think mine. I've always been a kind of a low T type. I'm an ectomorph. Like she builds muscle easily. I don't, and I'm kind of one of those. And I remember I tested my T in my early 30s, and it was only 25, so it was kind of low then. And then when I was post-meno, it was just non-existent. So yeah, I mean, I did get optimized. And then, as Serene said, bringing that. We were always kind of, hey, include your protein. It's very more important. But once I became a full-on protein nerd, I realized with this lean body mass that has gone off my body, I better do something. I want it back. I am going to get it back.
And we started resistance training
Yeah.
because before we used to do the little DVDs, cha-cha-cha, cha-cha-cha, those little movements you can do in your living room,
Right.
The children are playing in the corner. There's nothing dangerous about it. There's no iron or anything.
With Pilates.
Yeah. And
No
we're
one's
like,
getting hit
this
with a
has
thrown
done
weight. Right.
Yeah, we're like,
Yeah.
this has done nothing for our bodies. It's time. So we both got into resistance training. And boy, if there's anything that I would love to herald, like second to bioidentical hormones, it's the resistance training, especially. Well, I think everyone should start early because then they can just maintain it. That's so much easier than having to build back, in the late peri. But boy, it's really changed. That's been a huge game changer for our metabolism is the lifting.
Yeah, because when you lift, I mean, along with hormones, as you know, you can eat more. I mean, you can move more. You're stronger the way you move, the way you stand, everything. That was a big one for me. So, our listeners and our viewers, and that's a lot of what our new book's going to be about, that importance of strength training, which, you've taught on your podcast for a long time now, but you've been a lifter for a long time. So you predate us.
Yeah, totally.
That.
Well, it's always been right. It's always been a part of my life. I always say, you have to lift heavy shit on the show and give that message to women just like you ladies are, because it's so important to get women out of, kind of the Jane Fonda workouts like you're talking about, doing in front of the TV, and really, pick up a weight, get that resistance to your muscle so that we can keep our lean, sexy muscle. But I have to tell you, same thing after turning 50. Now I've been on BHRT now for a few years, all three: testosterone, progesterone, estradiol. And really when I crested 50, it's so much harder to keep on your muscle. My God, I had to take off a couple weeks for moving. And it's like everything went flat. My butt went flat. All my muscles went flat. I'm starting to see loose skin and that. So you really have to make it a habit in order to preserve your muscle tissue.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
do.
there's just no other way. And sometimes a lot of our women are like, well, where can I begin? And we're like, well, walking is first foundational movement, but as soon as you've sort of kind of gotten off the couch and you're walking, bring it in, because it's so much more bang for your buck time-wise, right?
Yeah.
For your metabolism. Like, you can get on the treadmill and you can do 40 minutes and it says, oh, you've burned 150 calories. Big
no
whoop.
post
You
burn.
only burned it then.
Yeah.
It's all about what you're burning when you sleep or when you
Right.
sit.
And what you're building. So that muscle itself is going to be burning through fuel. But you get addicted, don't you find? I feel like I'm addicted to the clang of the weight and just the feel, the strength that you feel.
Strong. Yeah, you feel powerful. It just adds to, that female power that we have. So now how many times a week are you working out? What did you change up in your regimen? You said you went from like the DVDs to actually using weights. So now what is your regimen, and what do you teach your people, your clients and your audience to do?
Well, see, we're so different. You know how
Yes.
she said, I love the clang of the weight?
Uh-huh.
I love no clang of the weight. I don't. I have to force myself to do this. I mean, she's always been like, bring on the exercise, I'm fierce. And I'm like, I'm not very fierce, but I'll do it, and I have gotten stronger. But actually, it's strange because we've just started a YouTube membership. We're doing our lifting sessions on there. I mean, I'm
Love
like
it.
the least person in the world that should ever be doing a lifting series, and there I am doing it. But I'm doing it because so many other people relate, I think, to me, who always hated to work out. I don't like, she's one of those rare people. Maybe she's like you, but she just loves it. It's like,
I have to hold myself back where
Yeah.
Pearl has to give me special, like on the couch counseling sessions. Serene, if you just do another day this week, you're just going to be like burning through muscle tissue. You need to let that thing repair and grow. Like, I love the gym. I want to get back into it, but I limit to 4 times a week of the heavy lifting.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's
I like
just like
that.
45 minutes. My workout sessions are only 25 minutes, and I have rest. I have rest for my cortisol and everything like that, but I'm not going to do more. That's too much time out of my day. And I just do 25 minutes 3 times a week. It's changed my body. I mean, I'm still a thin white woman, but
You're growing yourself a nice little bubble butt.
Yeah, I got a butt
Oh,
now. I
nice.
built my butt back. My husband loves my butt and my jeans. And
Well, and then that's proof that you can build your butt back even at 52, 53. That's awesome.
We had flat vegan bums, the both of us.
yeah.
Like, we had the white woman bum anyway, but then we had the vegan bum.
From the years ago, we were into veganism. Like, actually, we haven't told you that story. She was a raw foodist for 8 years, ate nothing
through my
but
pregnancies and
raw
nursing
plant.
and
Oh
all
my
that
God.
stuff.
All right, wait, we're going to save that. We got to save that because we're going to talk protein. So keep going with the BHRT. And we are absolutely freaking coming back to the fact that you were vegan. So
yeah. Oh yeah, our stories are funny.
Oh,
but okay, so the BHRT and the lifting and the protein and of course, just whole foods, and we love plants too, because plants actually, and you might know this, Dr. Amy, plants are incredible. We call ourselves plant strong,
vegans.
not plant only. yeah, we're meat eating vegans because we love both the animal kingdoms, but plants actually get in there to those insulin resistance muscles that have little droplets of intramuscular fat. As we get older, muscle should be muscle, but it starts to become striated with fat, like that big, marbled piece of steak that costs a lot of money. They make animals insulin resistant. And so, and of course, protein builds muscle, but what scrubs the muscle is a high amount of plants. It gets in there, and under imaging, there's some studies that show that the greater intake of plants, even the organs and the muscles were cleaner, and they had less of those micro droplets of fats. And when you have those micro droplets of fat, your muscles don't even work as well. They can't open up to receive insulin.
Right.
And so, so of course we eat a lot of plants, we eat a lot of protein, and we eat some healthy carbs too, especially when strength training. But, we're living our best lives, and we don't want to leave other women behind who are out there thinking, I feel awful.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we love to celebrate food too. We're big celebrators of food and enjoying all of the different, food kingdoms and the macronutrients. And because our story was always leaving things out. Always, we were very, very exclusive. And now, unless people have, allergies and they're walking through healing, we love to just kind of encourage inclusion, and also just being able to promote a way of life, like in the gym and, through things like bioidentical hormones that allow us to really be able to still eat. Because I feel
love
like
that.
eating is enjoyable.
Oh, I love
And,
it.
I know it's very trendy these days to just kind of like, life is better when you don't eat, but I don't think it's natural. Like, I
No.
don't think it goes with the instinct of humanity and just with social occasions and getting together with people. It's so much better when there's food involved. So
It
we're
is.
so excited now that we have this lifestyle that supports the fact that we can eat. We don't have to be calorie counting.
Absolutely.
We love that.
Well, that's why I love you ladies, because you do incorporate life. You enjoy life, you enjoy food, you incorporate everything now. And I really think that that's the message that we have to give to women is don't go down these fad diet pathways. Don't, and I'm going to ask your opinion on intermittent fasting too, but it drives me nuts when a woman comes in and she's doing an OMAD or, 20-hour fast or a fast 3 days a week. You're just not going to get in the amount of protein that you need, number one. And you're not enjoying life at that point. You are forcing yourself through the day. I get it if it's for maybe cancer prevention, you're doing it once a year, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But to do it ongoing and to restrict, I love the fact that you said you incorporate everything now.
Yeah. I think, we were at a baby shower the other night and
I was
we
going to say that it really affected us.
Yeah, we were all enjoying, that we live in a community. Everyone brought healthy food, but it was delightful food.
We
It's
live
all
in a community, but we're not a cult, just so you know.
Yeah,
We all have
yeah.
our own husbands, own land, all that stuff.
own husbands, not quite a cult. So we're at a baby shower and we're all there and we're eating and we're really enjoying it. And then a friend came but she wasn't eating. And it was like 6:30. It was dinner time, and we all brought a lot of food. And we're like, "Oh, you want some?" She's like, "Well, I'm fasting," but she sat there and it was so sad. And she was so sad. And she didn't really talk to anyone because she didn't want to be around the food, and
the energy wasn't the same
no,
because it's just not. And so there was definitely, you pull yourself out of society.
but I
and
understand sometimes women, especially when they get to our age
they're
group,
desperate.
they're desperate. There's nothing, it's what they turn to because nothing else has worked. And that's there. And at first it does, it pulls some weight down, but the term being weight, not necessarily fat. They did some studies, and what they found, and we put these in our book, was that intermittent fasting, usually when you reduce calories or go on a diet, there's about 1/3 of what you lose is lean body mass. But this was over half. Over half of what was lost in the intermittent fasting study done was lean body mass. And that's so brutal for your metabolism.
And usually when people are starting to get so desperate and starting to try out the intermittent fasting is when they're closer to menopause or they're in menopause, because that's when they struggle with their metabolism being even more broken. And that's when sarcopenia is at that freight train to hell, so that's, we don't need to be having these long windows without feeding the amino acids into our muscles.
And then there's also, kisspeptin levels in our brain. You're probably familiar with those. Women have 2 receptors for these and men have 1. And men, I know many men that do pretty well fasting. And I know some women.
But my point too is let's just wait for 15 years. There's always a time.
Let's see.
Yeah.
But, but women, I know some of them seem to do well at first too. And then I've seen women that even try OMAD, 1 meal a day, and still do not drop a thing.
Right.
They're so stuck. And it's a lot to do with these 2 kisspeptin levels because we are very sensitive to food intake. And when it doesn't happen, leptin rises, our whole body shuts down and says, you need to
get the LEA low.
Yeah, you're not going to burn any fat. You're on your way out. I'm going to stop you. You're a life giver. You need to be having babies, even though if you're not having babies, you're too old to have babies. The kisspeptin sensitivity levels are still there, and our bodies are trying to keep us alive, so they shut down fat burning.
Absolutely. It's a whole starvation response from like the 90s that we would hear about even in bodybuilding. Like you want to eat enough so that your body doesn't think that you're starving. So even if you're in prep mode, when I was doing shows and competing, oh my God, we had to restrict calories, but we didn't restrict it. A good coach would not restrict you to the point of you're dropping into, 900 or 1,000 calories a day. You'd be eating clean foods multiple times a day, but your calories would still be high. But those coaches that were the bad coaches, you would see these people become emaciated, but then after the show, they would balloon up because their body was so starved that it basically shut down their metabolism. It shut down their thyroid function as well.
Yeah.
I saw it too when I adopted I adopted 5 children from Africa, and they were so emaciated and so thin when they came, just like rickets, like they had the rickets in the legs, and they're just very bony. Actually, my little baby I adopted at the time, she couldn't even walk because like she was already walking, but then lost her ability to walk because of the malnutrition. Anyway, all that to say is when they got here in America, got on our normal diet that kept us, like, we're a healthy family. I make all my own bread, artisan sourdough, the whole thing. But on our healthy diet, they kind of ballooned up for a while. And then they slowly lost it again. But there was that backlash to starvation where there's a backlash to starvation, and you put it on again and more.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
100%. Okay. So we have to transition, since we're talking food, we have to transition into your story. How were you guys vegans first? And then what broke you out of that? Please tell that story.
Can I say one thing too, though?
Yeah.
But I just had a thought about the intermittent fasting, and they say it's so great because it gets rid of the senescent cells and all of that, and it's true.
Right.
But there are so many more fun ways to get rid of senescent cells that work, that aren't so miserable. And that's what I like to.
Yeah, I mean,
like the resistance training.
Yeah, resistance training does. Sleep does.
Yes.
I mean, certain foods powerfully berberine.
Yes.
I mean,
100%.
I mean,
I'm with you. I
they don't
wanna
have
be
the
miserable.
negative side too. That's
but our
fasting.
story, yeah. Okay. So it's a long story, but we'll try to do it real quick. We're sisters, like we are 3rd generation crunchy. Like our nana had health books, like and there were always health books
for like her hobby. Like she just
so we grew up like with health books, and our mom was like, baking bread when everyone else had the nice white fluffy bread, and we had to eat the brown bricks of bread.
The leftover salad from the night before in it, in Australia, most of the school children, they have these white bread, Vegemite and chippy sandwiches, salt and vinegar chips, Vegemite, white bread, and everyone had it.
But we didn't.
Oh no, we had the brick bread with the slimy old salad inside. Oh my goodness.
But anyway, but we got Whole Foods growing up, it was good food. But then, but we had this bent inside us because of our nana and mom. Like we read too many health books growing up. Like everyone else
we wanted for Christmas.
would be at the mall. Serene and I would go down to, the little health store and like sit there and read health books. It was just a weird kind of obsession.
And that obsession didn't work for us in the end because, when you're reading all the gurus' stuff out there, it's a whole lot of what I like to call like the wisdom of man. Like, and it's just, sometimes it's just too educated beyond common sense, a lot of lost in the weeds. So we got lost in the weeds. We tried everything out, and not just for a few weeks at a time. Like I went raw food, plant vegan for a good 8 years. And that was for my first 4 children. And so like literally I had teeth crumble out of my mouth. I've got like 4 root canals that ended up in implants too because of that. Like my bum wasn't just flat, it was concave because my baby's kind of one of my pregnancies, I only gained 6 pounds.
Okay.
And I'm not overweight. So that was not just like 6 pounds and just relying on my body fat. I mean, I literally look like Ethiopian with a basketball.
But it's like, you're thinking, well, why did you do that? Why did you girls do these things? I never went raw, but I was a vegan for 12 years, pure vegan. Why did we do that? Because we were looking for the ultimate way to eat that would sustain a human. We just kept going from the next to the next. Like, what's better? We didn't have huge weight problems. We just wanted to know, how is a human really supposed to eat to feel their best?
We were having babies. So your tummy's going out and in and out and in and out and in. And that feels very vulnerable. You feel very out of control. And you're like, how do I just look after this girlish waistline? Is it possible? Is there a diet? Is there a way? So we tried it all. I mean, Pearl, you did the high carb, the low carb,
I did everything. And I was vegan, and then that's because I'd looked up, that's what you're supposed to do if you had fibroids, and that's what you're supposed to do if you've had reproductive issues. I was always heavy bleeding. My cycles were terrible. Go
you
vegan.
Didn't bleed for 2 days out of the month.
So go vegan. So I did it. And I was so low in iron, I had to take a nap every day. It didn't help my problems. I ended up in this state called done. I was so done with hearing what anyone had to say about diet,
and I was to the point where what's after raw food veganism? I mean, I kicked my 2 ovens that we had in our kitchen. I kicked them off the deck. I had like 7 dehydrators whirring, all because I had a lot of children too. So like I was whirring all of this bird seed pate burgers, you know, in there and all crazy stuff. What was after that? Fruitarian and then aeritarian, where you just survive on air. I mean, like I've gotten to the pinnacle of like the guru's way of eating. And looking back, it was very much an idol in my life. I can see that now, but before I was like, no, this is just my hobby. I love to just juice for 3 hours a day, you know. But I got to a place called done too because I was young. I was like early 20s and I was emaciated. Like I got cellulite on my arms because all of my muscle had gone. And I was skinny with a little goat tummy, you know, with all the roughage in there, you know, that just couldn't hold it in.
Yeah.
And so anyway, we actually went.
Son's over there laughing.
We actually went to the Bible because we're preachers' kids. And so I was so done. I'm like, I've come here for my spiritual wisdom my whole life, but is there something practical in here for me? And I parted the Bible with my nose. I was like crying. And I saw this amazing verse in there. And I mean, it's ancient wisdom and it was so much truth to me. And it met me where I was at. And it's like, I give you the herb of the field, the fat of the ram, the milk of the goat, the blood of the grape, the harvest of the field was all there. Oh. And a light bulb went on and I'm like, oh my goodness, I've always been about what I can't have and what I'm going to push out of my life. This is saying all of it is mine. And it's a gift from the creator. I mean, I literally got goosebumps. I ran over to Pearl's house. We were neighbors. I was bawling my eyes out and I'm like, look at this. And from that moment, we're like, that's it. No more exclusion. So we added it all back in and we got fat. And then you take from there.
So wait, Pearl, you were on board just from that Bible verse, which is so powerful. I love that.
Because I was so done too. This is the state where I just come back from a scan and I had fibroids and I was like going to have surgery and I was going to have a hysterectomy at this point. I didn't know what else to do.
Now, did both of you have thyroid issues too? Because you're eating soy, you're eating raw, cruciferous.
Yeah, I mean, I had a thyroid issue that I didn't know about.
I didn't check my thyroid at that time. I didn't know about all of that fantastic stuff, but I was broken. I was totally broken and I was desperate, and my father-in-law had just died of cancer. My husband was dealing with cancer at the time too. It was a skin cancer, but it had kind of like blown up into like a big, huge part on his back. It was just a whole lot of like, I was using all of this exclusion as a control to like keep my family alive and healthy. So we were at that desperate place. All it really needed was the scripture to her. She's like, boy, I'm on board.
But we only needed something,
So we decided, let's bring it all back in. So we did that. You remember that book? I don't know if you're familiar with it, Nourishing Traditions by Sally Fallon. Okay. All the food groups go back in. It's all about primal eating, kind of like the ancient way of all the different,
it's very whole foods eating, but like of times of yore. So you ferment your grains and, you include all your good fats and you put them all
the grass-fed meats.
But what you do is you put them all together and then you get nice and chubby.
So we both got nice and chubby.
What happened
for
to
us,
me.
like what we thought,
I mean, I just started growing out of my genes, but I felt good.
Okay.
I didn't have to have a nap in the afternoon. My iron levels were probably coming up. I was eating red meat I hadn't eaten red meat in 12 years.
Right. I needed to gain the weight. So I was starting to look
She was looking better. I was starting to look worse.
But I'm like, how do I stay it better and not get like beyond that?
So we really, I mean, we're two nerds, right? So we really dive deep. Now back then, we didn't have all the Facebook groups or anything. So we got on these bro sites.
Oh my goodness.
People that knew their stuff were the bros. I mean, there was an F word every second word, but
I said we're preachers' kids. And all of a sudden I'm talking to her and I'm like, yeah. And we started talking ass talk.
Well, it was ass talk because we got on the bro site. So we started adopting the language.
Yeah. I mean, I always say the OGs of biohacking are the bodybuilders.
My
they're the
goodness.
bros, man. Yeah.
They started this for us because we realized, no, we can include all the food groups. We just have to be smart about them. Look at these bros. They're cutting their body. They're building their body. They know their macronutrients, but we thought it's really a bit too harsh for women. How can we do this in a way that works for women?
Mm-hmm.
And so we started to experiment with our own bodies. And so, it's not really food combining, but when we had fats, it's really quite simple. We just lower the carbs a bit and kind of make fats a celebration.
We always anchored everything around protein. Protein. That was like the little hinge in the seesaw. And then when we had the gentle carbs, because we didn't want to spike our carbs. So whenever we had the gentle carbs, then we pulled, the fats down.
And that's all it was. And
we never had naked carbs. We always had that little bit, like a teaspoon of healthy
always
fat.
Well grounded in protein, not as protein nerdy as we are now, but we always said, well, let's put some protein in there. We didn't even count. We didn't know, but we just said protein. Okay.
Yep.
Oh my goodness, it worked. I got down to this healthy weight. I felt good. We never thought we'd write a book.
And then we had a crossover meal, which is like everything but very balanced, you know. So you're not spiking your carbs, you're balancing around protein, but you're having that healthy fat, and that's kind of your maintenance.
Yeah, we were just
meal.
like, we started to understand insulin and how it plays in, and blood glucose and all that, what foods do what. And so, you know, so people started, we're blabbermouths, obviously. And so we started talking to friends, family. We'd get phone calls all day long, like, Pearl and Serene, you're like, you did so, please, can you help me? So we'd have people over to our house, and we'd write it down on like paper plates, or we'd write down this
we're
plan.
we're dorks.
And we got so sick of it. We got calls from people we didn't even know. Like, people started hearing about this, and we thought, okay.
So we were homeschooling our billion children between the two of us, you know. And so in the summers, we're like, we're going to write this book. And it ended up being over 600 pages long. And our mother, who, you know, she's published books before, she's like, this is ridiculous. It will never sell. You have to make 3 books out of this. We're like, nope. We're sticking it all in the one book. We don't care if it won't sell. We'll just print on demand one copy at a time.
We could give it to people who keep asking us these questions, and then we'll never have to be asked another question again, which is really funny.
There you go.
But we you know, we self-published the book, and the rest is history.
So I was hanging my clothes on the line outside, and, you know, I get a call from somebody saying, your book's New York Times bestseller. And I'm like, what's New York Times bestseller? I mean, like, I'm out here in the country, and it wasn't even my life. And from there, it's just been like it's all organic.
It's a really like a pinch yourself, change your life. Like, we didn't plan this movement of women, you know, hundreds of thousands, millions strong.
We had no motivation to be.
But it's been amazing with the transformations, and with that, as we said, we were premenopausal women, and now we're kind of morphing into this different time, and it's so exciting I feel like we're back then. I feel like we're learning more again. Once again, what works, because it's different from what worked then. It's that, but it's more.
Yeah. And what's crazy is everything that you just said. I'm remembering I used to eat that way. If I was having a carb, I would put a little bit of a protein with it, because that's going to slow the absorption of the carbohydrate. It's going to slow that blood sugar spike. So now, listening to you, it almost makes me want to get back to really thinking about how I am food combining. So can you go more into that? Into your theories of yes, a protein at every meal. And I'd like to hear your macro counts too, if you have them, and what you advise women to do protein gram wise, and then how you pair that up with fats and carbs throughout the day.
Okay. So with the protein, you know, we like to have about 25 at each meal.
Minimum, really.
With a 3-gram bolus of lutein for our nerd level protein people.
So we've got 3 nerd levels we talk about. So a nerd level 1 is just, hey, have protein with your meal. It's better than just having cornflakes or pasta.
You know, we don't even give a number.
Have protein. Nerd level 2 is have 25 grams. That's what you need. That's what studies say is needed to keep your lean body mass. I mean, you know, if you're going to go without that, you're going to decline.
And we do about 4 to, you know, we like to encourage about 25 grams of protein, like 4 times a day, you know, separate, but I do about 5.
Yeah. Because studies have said, especially as we get older, it's not the amount per day necessarily. It's those fuelings, because we have less ability to take in as much protein at a time. So as we age, it's kind of about those 4 fuelings. So then the next thing, and of course we love amino acids too, because they can get it in if you don't want to have a big meal or snack, you know. And then the next thing, we've got a nerd level 3. Okay. And that is not just your grams of protein, but what are the amino acids that you're getting in there? Are you getting your lutein, which is your muscle boss?
And all of those supporting essential amino acids, you know, that are the minions, you know, that kind of grow the muscle tissue, and lutein is that.
We're 2 to 3 gram lutein people at a meal and a snack. Why? Because it's what happened to us when we're vegans. Vegetarian foods are fantastic, but they're terrible at building muscle.
Protein. Maybe it has 25 grams of protein, but the lutein is in the toilet.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, or if it is, it's not as, if it's up a bit, it's not as bioavailable. And so we weren't getting that muscle synthesizing trigger at the meal.
Yeah, so we still love lentils and beans, but they're really not going to fuel your muscle, especially at our age. I mean, as well as like your meat proteins and things like that.
So you would count those as a carb, right? You would count lentils and beans as a carb, not a protein.
More so.
Right.
More so, yeah. So you know, you want to talk about our meals. They're so basic. We kind of have 3 main meals, and our S meal is our fats meal. And basically that's what
S standing for satisfying.
Yeah, and that's kind of what the modern world of keto is. However, we're a bit more protein orientated and a little less fat heavy. So you celebrate your fat
and more plant focused.
Yeah, if it's half an avocado of your fat, or if it's some coconut oil, or if it's the fat in your meat, If it's nuts or seeds or nut butter, that's fantastic. But then if you pile a bunch of carbs on there at the same time, there's two fuels for you to burn. And if
Your body will always burn glucose first.
yeah. And so then that fat might just sit there, which is supposed to be temporary in your fat stores, but it stays a permanent resident for so many of us. But if you can just dig into that fat first, and you've got your protein, of course, then you can burn it. And so that's our S meal. And we just call it S meal because fats are so satisfying.
Yeah. And then we have the E meal, and that stands for energizing. And we like to, always do the gentle burning carbs. And of course, we have that protein, like you said, anchoring the gentle carb and making sure that blood sugar doesn't spike. And we don't like to have a naked carb. So we have about a teaspoon, 5 grams of fat, or under a teaspoon of
Some can do
healthy
2
fat.
teaspoons. It depends upon who you are. Some do well with that. But we don't pile copious amounts of pour the oil or butter on in that meal. Or there's 2 main macronutrients. Your body's like, I can't.
Well, we don't, but then we do. We don't when we want to lose weight.
Yeah.
But then we're living on crossovers now because we're in the gym.
And a crossover is,
I mean, we just got to keep the weight on now. So
a crossover is a merging of those two. So you never want to spike your blood sugar. You never want to have a meal without protein. You want to just be wise about your carbs, wise about your fats, but put them together because that's a beautiful thing. Whole grain, if you can do, I know, so many people have to be gluten free, but you could do, rice and butter or rice and avocado. Those are your fats, those are your carbs. And then you've got your chicken breast for your protein. So that's a beautiful meal too.
And is that just once a day that you'll have a crossover? Or how do you structure those meals? Do you time it to where the S meals at the end of the day because you don't want carbs at the end of the day, or does that not matter?
We usually, we tell people just kind of like what we call freestyle it and see how, what blesses their body. Pearl, you've always ended up loving the S meal at the night because she loves a big, heavy, not a heavy, but more of a hearty meal at night.
Yeah.
My meal at night is, I can't stop this meal at night. I have it every night. When I don't, I miss it. It's like the hugest salad in the world. And it's like my baked salmon, and I put nutritional yeast and chili powder, cayenne, and rosemary. Oh my goodness. And then I have blueberries. I have goat's cheese. I have nuts. And it's an S. It's got those fats. And it just settles me. I don't crave. I've got my good fats from the fish and my nuts and my goat's cheese. And I'm just,
we rarely start our day without carbs.
Yeah.
We rarely do. I mean, we just say, hey, like I said, freestyle. If you want to wake up to eggs and coffee, fantastic, go for it. But we like to think, when the sun is shining and up, it's almost like the harvest is ripe in the field, and you're kind of telling your body, hey, burn, And so we really feel it, and we've noticed it in our woman, and we've noticed it in ourselves too, that carbohydrates really do rev your metabolism.
Well,
the gentle ones.
I discovered when I went through my own menopause transition was, as we get into peri and postmenopause, our estrogen drops. Estrogen is such a big heavy hitter of a stress hormone. We have cortisol to deal with stress, but we also have our estradiol as we're younger. And then that tanks. So what's happening? Our cortisol is rising and rising. Cortisol, when it's in excess, as we know, it puts fat on our bellies. It stops us from resting and digesting and all that. So when it gets to that point where it's kind of alone here, taking on the brunt because our estrogen's in the bucket, then our stress, cortisol has to do the heavy lifting, and that's not great for our weight. And so, but what actually helps with cortisol lowering it is really healthy carbohydrate
in the morning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so
we keep that cortisol low for the rest of the day.
Part of my process of figuring out how is it best to eat for menopause and perimenopause. I tried going more low carb for a while, but I actually found after a while that carbs were better for my metabolism, including them rather than excluding them for me. I know we're all different, but when I had those carbs in the morning, my cortisol, and we put studies in our new book, Trim Healthy Wisdom, to show this, the cortisol actually it lowers, and they did studies with perimenopausal women that showed that when they had a protein and a carb in the morning, their cortisol was lower throughout the day.
Oh,
we're also working out too.
Yeah.
We love to work out in the morning, and that kind of gives us that extra oomph in the gym.
Yeah,
it does. Yeah. No, that absolutely helps. Now, will you do a workout fasted in the morning, or do you always eat your protein and your carb before the workout?
Oh, so if I have to, like I usually, we were talking, prior to this, potty, and we were just saying how, we like to ease into the day and maybe start getting into the gym around 8:39.
Yeah.
I don't usually like to be one of those 4:30 people.
Right.
But sometimes if I've got a flight to catch, or we just have a day just with chock full with meetings, I'm like, I just don't want to be sitting under like fluorescent lights and like sitting in my bum's being kind of part of the chair. I will have a workout in. So I'll wake up at that early, unheard of hour, and I'll work out, and then I won't be wanting a big breakfast. So I'll do the essential amino acids. I'll do that. And then just like a little piece of juicy fruit where it's all, the carbohydrates getting right into my bloodstream.
I don't know. I'm open. My body can't do a fasted workout. I just know I don't know. I need that. I'll have a little bit of honey or a little bit of fruit and essential amino acids for fasted. I know some people say do fasted to burn into the fat, but for me, it doesn't work. And especially as my hormones tanked. Now they're optimized, but even now I feel better when I give my body something to say, you're okay, baby girl. You don't need to stress. Your cortisol doesn't need to shump up, because when we work out, our cortisol does rise.
Oh, it does. It definitely does. Glucose rises, cortisol rises. So I think I think it's actually helpful to, at least, like you said, have the amino acids on board. But even I was, as much as we can think for other people, sometimes you can't think for yourself. So I reached out to this MMA trainer, and he built a workout for me. I said, I really want to put on muscle, because this was last year. I was moving into turning 50. And he said, what do you eat afterwards? I'm like, I usually do a protein shake and then some type of carbohydrate. He's like, why are you not doing protein before your workout? You figure you go to the gym, you break down your muscle, and now by the time you get home, take the shake in, it gets digested. Your body was ready to take up that protein, those aminos, an hour ago, not now. So now I've started doing it beforehand. And I think it really does have something to do too with age, because, when you're in your 20s, you're all about, I just want to lose weight and be skinny. So you do your fasted workout. You're like, I want to burn as much fat as possible. But now, we're kind of moving into like, I want to keep my muscle.
Right. And I feel like it's more, of the mindset these days. Well, hopefully I feel like it's getting to be more where it's not about being so skinny as much as it's about being strong. And there's this new kind of like message about it's the new sexy is the strong.
It is.
And I really feel because I had my past was kind of the wasted, emaciated vegan. I really love the fact that I kind of doing this whole resistance training, not to be skinny, but to get some shape. And to get some strength. And so I love to do protein before and protein afterwards. I do it right before, right after.
No, I think it's so genetic too. Like our tenants are like, she's more of a mesomorph, I'm more of an ectomorph. I will never look like an Amazon woman, but I have built my bottom back, and I have, I'm so much stronger than I was. I don't have the belly fat, interestingly. As I grew my glutes, my belly fat went away. Isn't that
nice?
fascinating?
You push it all back.
And so that's right. That's right. So I think, genetic. Now, some people just grow muscle like breathing air. I mean, I'm not like that, but I'm not genetically blessed like that. But some people are, and they may be thinking, you're saying emaciated vegan, I'm vegan and I'm not emaciated. So some people are just genetically blessed, and they're kind of, they don't have the problems that we've experienced.
Right. But that's few and far between. That's few and far. Yeah. So no, I'm loving this. I'm sucking this up, because I'm actually thinking of some patients that I have that they're just stuck. So let me ask you, if you have a woman that does have insulin resistance, and you see it on her labs, A1C is elevated, insulin's through the roof, will you change up anything? Will you still allow her to do the carb and protein meals? Maybe will you reduce it to one a day? Do you change anything with that?
Well, I think at first, when they do carb meals, we say sometimes it needs to be a pullback carb, because if you're so insulin resistant, you can't do, 3/4 a cup of brown rice, you're going to spike. Maybe you have to do that 1/3 to a half because you're not ready. But
maybe it's just lentils that you can have.
Maybe you can just do beans, they're gentler. Maybe you can't do, the mango, but you can do a green apple, but there's always a carb that you can have to help lower your cortisol. And
we also do little shots before, maybe like an apple cider ACV shot, or anything sour, that just right before the,
that really
or makes a little bit of whey sometimes, like a shot half an hour before a carbohydrate meal can really help the postprandial blood glucose.
I mean, definitely. But, but I think the goal is not necessarily to always think less carbs and more over time. I think the goal is to build that lean body mass so that we can, have those good carbohydrates in time. It might be a journey, but I think insulin resistance, what they're finding, the latest studies, is sometimes that constant keto or constant low carb form causes a form of insulin
Right.
resistance. They're calling it evolutionary insulin
Yeah.
resistance. I call it a bit more like, just a physiological insulin resistance where you're not giving your body carbs. It's like not using your legs when you're in a wheelchair for a while. It doesn't work as much.
And then when you do, because it's not sustainable to always be off of carbs in the world. And so then if you do even have like, I'm just going to have a little sweet potato fries or a little sweet potato,
Yeah.
then your body treats it like a donut.
Yeah.
Because it's just like, oh my goodness, I'm just not even used to this. It's a freak out. And so then it causes more of a spike than you'd regularly want. And so we actually think, sometimes the keto sometimes can be just kind of a Band-Aid. The problem's never really fixed. The problem's never really addressed. It's just kind of on hold.
Because numbers do go down. Like you'll see if you do low carb, and we've done this. I mean, ourselves, this is all try and error, and with thousands of women kind of watching what they do. If you do low carb for a while, your A1C will come down. Your insulin, if they're high, it usually will come down. Sometimes then it can go back up if you're too low carb for a long
Yes.
time. I don't know if you've seen that. Have you seen that?
I have seen that. I've definitely seen that. And we were talking a little bit off air before we started, in that, people always think that I just do keto with everyone because I've spoken at KetoCon
Yeah.
and I've talked about low carb diets on the podcast, but actually I built a course called Keto for the Week specifically for women who maybe they want to try low carb, but by no means do I want them to be low carb forever. You have to come up out of it on the weekends. But I'm actually really loving how you guys are talking about the food combining. And I'm going to push more of my patients that are stuck, and well, all my patients, toward eating your way and getting your book, because I'm my wheels are turning. I'm really starting to think like that might be that key, because women go into it, and even though you tell them to come up out of it once a week, they either go overboard and treat it as a cheat day, and they're eating, a full pizza and ice cream and all that. Or they go, no, you know what? I'm too scared. I'm too scared to eat carbs. I'm just going to stay low carb.
And that's what's happened even in our program. We'll have people do our program, but only the S meals. So they're not really doing the program because they get afraid. They get afraid of the carbohydrates, and they feel in control with the S meal. But then when they put in the energizing meal, they feel a little bit out
Like
of control.
naughty.
And it can make them also have a little more hunger.
Yeah.
And then maybe a little uptick on the scale, but it's water, getting into their muscle tissue. And so it can be a little scary.
When we process and we do things with it, with the fats way, it's a source of energy for sure, but it is a slower source of energy than carbs, which are faster. Our body prefers glucose, and it will always use it at first, then it will dig in and get the fats.
Right.
But it's interesting. Sometimes if you do it for a long time, your metabolism also becomes slow to match the slower way of getting energy.
That's what we found. We found a lot of our people that just stick to the low carb. Then in the end, they have to go to intermittent fasting. Before intermittent fasting, they have to lower calorie, the low carb. Because at first it's like, oh, I can have the steak and the cheese, and I can have
chicken wings.
Yeah, all of the fat. And then after a while, we see them morph into low calorie, low carbing. Then after low calorie, low carbing, they go into intermittent fasting. After intermittent fasting, they have to extend the window in intermittent fasting, and then they go to OMAD.
And then they
watch this progression.
OMAD doesn't work, and it's like a 32-hour one, and you can go on the groups. I lurk on groups. Okay, it's my thing. All the different ways of eating, I love to lurk under a pseudonym. But I'll see people like, hey, it's been 48 hours now. I'm dropping my fast to 48 hours. Nothing's happening, but their body's shut down. I mean, it's brutal. I'm not saying there's not a place for fasting. I'm just saying, especially when we get into these seasons, we need to be wise and we need to be careful.
Well, and ironically, kind of coming back to the statement that you said before about literally their body shutting down, going into starvation, Dr. Jason Fung, who used to speak ad nauseum about intermittent fasting and low carb eating. I haven't heard him for a while, but he gave one talk where I actually remember the studies that he referenced. And one of them was when they looked at men, they took a group of men and they called this actually a very low carb diet. It was the VLCD, or very low calorie diet. I'm sorry. And they were giving the men around 1,580 calories, which is, I mean, to me, moderate. It's not super low, but I guess for a 220 pound male, that'd be low. it was low enough in calories that these men actually started having cravings for donuts and fried food and sugar because they were going into starvation mode. Their body was screaming at them like, please bring your blood sugar back up. This is too low. And then another study that a gentleman did, he had to do it on prisoners. I guess he wanted to do it at a college, but he couldn't get the kids to eat enough, which is crazy. So he goes into a prison and he feeds these prisoners 10,000 calories a day. And what he found over time is that their bodies adapted. A couple of them gained weight, but most of them would like gain a little bit and then lose it because their bodies became adapted to burning 10,000 calories a day. So both of those speak to your point of if you OMAD, if you overfast, if you restrict, if you over low carb it, if you go carnivore, your body may shut down and literally lower the amount of calories that it can burn in a day ongoing.
Yeah, it will. And what's interesting about insulin, and you probably know this, you know, and for a while it was kind of the big rage, especially with fasting, to keep insulin low. You know, we don't want insulin. And now, you know, with the
GLP-1
mimetic incretin, you know, the shots that everyone's doing, what they've found is actually it gives you bigger surges of insulin, but the difference is it's cleared. It's not about not forcing insulin up somewhat after a meal. That's beautiful. That's needed. It's just that when it goes up and stays up, you got a problem. And that happens when we have puny muscles too, right? I mean, they can't open up and receive insulin. So that's why we're fiercely contending for this lean body mass, all of us. And you know, when we make an insulin surge, we're getting all of our nutrients, we're getting our protein, we're getting our fats into our muscles and our glucose, but let's let it get cleared.
It's natural, you know, just that natural rise, the rising clear. It feels like just the beautiful way that creation is set up too, with the tide and the ebb and the tide and the ebb, and these natural wave-like patterns. They're beautiful. They're part of nature. We don't want just this constant dirge, and then we eat a sweet potato out of the blue, and then tsunami, and then constant dirge. You know, it's not natural. Yeah.
Now, eating, I love that. Eating how your body really is meant to eat and incorporating everything, like you said. So let me ask you specifically about gluten. You know, when you read that scripture verse, the grains and the wheat, and so, but these days we live in, at least in America, at least every person I know that's traveled overseas, they are not affected by the grains and the gluten over there. But here, oh my God, what about the gluten containing products? What do you guys say about that?
Yeah, well, we because, you know, we're preachers' kids, we like to say we love God's gluten. You know, the gluten that was put in the ancient grains, you know, the spelt, the kamut, the emmer wheat, all of that ancient stuff. If our creator put it in there, we feel like he created our body. We should be able to handle it, but it's the Monsanto wheat. Am I allowed to say that? You know, Phil always kicks me on the table if I'm just going in politically incorrect. But, you know, all of that's been just messed with by science to just be way higher in gluten. And then, of course, the glyphosates, you know, that could be the issue. Even above
some people have to be because of whatever. I mean, they can't do any gluten whatsoever. My daughter's that way. I mean, she has the antibodies. She can't even do the ancient grains. I mean, she makes her own bread out of teff. It's incredible. But, you know, of course, there's some people that can't do it. But I think there's been an overabundance of gluten. And that's why we have all the sensitivities with this puffed up modern wheat. It's like loaded with gluten compared to the ancient grains.
And of course, you know, like I said, the things that they're sprayed with and the glyphosates, it's so awful. Yeah. But
you know, fermenting bread too, it reduces the gluten amount. So the way that people used to eat bread with the long ferments and, you know, the sourdough, it reduces the gluten, reduces sensitivities, lowers the, you know, all the things that people are so worried about these days, lectins and phytates and all those, you know, the so-called baddies. We actually need some of them in the diet, but they're lowered all through fermentation.
Now, do you have people combine? You mentioned it earlier that you encourage fermented foods. Do you have that as a rule, like specific combinations, add in fermented foods when?
Well, you know, we encourage, you know, fermented foods from the beginning. We're a big kefir girls, but we understand that some people's guts cannot take it. And so we always say, go slow. You know, maybe it's just 1 tablespoon at first a day. And then you may just get up to, you can do like little whiskey shots a couple of times a day. I mean, I have basically every day I have about a pint of kefir every day. But that's why we love the gentle carbs too, because they do nurture our guts, with the prebiotic fibers. And we also encourage the cultured vegetables. We pretty much ferment everything.
And nobody has to do these things. It's baby steps, right? So someone can come off a standard American diet and feel absolutely overwhelmed. Like, oh, what? I have to drink kefir now? I have to make kefir? I have to make fermented bread?
Yeah, and it's not the brought store-bought
Forget it.
kefir too, because we've noticed
Yeah.
the store-bought kefir has done nothing for us. And we had our food scientists check the 5 major brands of store-bought kefir, and these were at like the Whole Foods, the trendy health stores, and he couldn't even find L-kefir in them. They had like 5 to 7 other strains, but not like the 40 to 50 strains that a robust, home fermented, traditional kefir out of the little grains can
But
create.
I was saying, you don't have to do these things at first, but when it comes to insulin resistance that so many of us have as our hormones decline and our muscles decline, fermented foods are one of the most powerful fighters against insulin resistance.
And especially as our estrogen plummets, and especially if you don't want to put back in bioidentical hormones.
So if you don't want to make kefir,
keeps our microbiome.
I mean, go to the store and get some, sauerkraut, but not off the shelf. You got to get in the refrigerated section, right? Because that has all the enzymes, that has the lacto-fermented power to help your body open up and be sensitive to carbs, to be sensitive to insulin. And or take some apple cider vinegar and shoot it before a meal. It would do much the same thing.
Right.
But there's all little tips and tricks to help us.
And now you guys have created, you have a huge store from everything from hair and skin products to baking goods, stevia, everything. So what made you, did you see kind of a missing piece of the puzzle in our arena today? And what prompted you to we're going to do this?
When you talk about, the no gluten, I just want to address that quickly, and it answers this question too. Some people just jumping on the bandwagon of it's trendy to be no gluten. Of course, some people really do need to be no gluten at all. But we found that all the gluten-free baking mixes, they were incredibly either spiking your carbs because it was like this cassava flour or potato starch or white rice flour or whatever. Or they were so heavy in calories.
Like almond flour.
We created this whole baking line basically to help people who needed to be gluten-free be able to make gluten-free breads, gluten-free cakes and muffins and whatever, and it be something that wasn't abusive to their
really
system.
What happened, we never set out to do any of this, honestly. Remember how we said, like, we made that book and we didn't know what was going to happen to it. So in there, we said, instead of like sugar or honey, use stevia. And we mentioned a brand because we didn't think we'd have a company.
Right.
So all our readers went and bought them out like it was a flood. And like that company couldn't get more in because like it was all gone. And back then there was stevia.
They actually changed their sauce too.
Yeah,
they had to add an additional sauce.
So they got a new sauce.
And then they were making all our recipes and they're like, oh my goodness, it tastes like
kerosene.
This in it, or kerosene, and like I can't make my brownies anymore, Pearl and Serene. So
they said, please get us a stevia. So that we were just responding to the need.
So my husband and her husband, they had their own jobs. That we weren't a business. We just wrote this book, and then so I sent my husband to China. He didn't speak a lick of Chinese, so he went like with a vow of silence, and he went because we heard that South America and China are the biggest sources of stevia. And so he found this organic farm in the inland China, and they don't even use any diesel engines on it. It's all hand done. It's beautiful. We've actually gone and visited it ourselves, but he went over there and he found the source of incredible stevia. And then he started going around the globe, finding all this other stuff, the things that our woman asked for. So it's
we've only ever responded to the need, and we didn't think we'd start a company or a store or
we have makeup and all of that because our people are like, well, we don't use chemicals on our face anymore, blah blah blah. So can you make makeup? Then we did that, and we've responded the whole time.
Oh my gosh, I absolutely love it. I love it. We're gonna put the store in the show notes, needless to say, because I'm gonna go shopping. I want the best stevia. I want
it is the best. No, just let me break for a minute, because we tried. When he was on the search around the globe for the stevia, we must have tried 500 different stevias. And it was always like,
even one that was so amazing from South America, we like, this is incredible. We were hooked. We were addicted. We started putting, I didn't even love sweet things, but I started putting it in everything. I don't even sweeten my coffee. I like, this makes my coffee better. And we found out this company from South America had mixed it with
aspartame.
aspartame.
Was a saccharin.
That's why I was
but
addicted.
The only ingredient said stevia. But then when we dug into the whole company, and we had friend missionaries living there, and then we found out, no, it's mixed. So, but we were sitting out stevia for months. Finally, we found this stevia, and it's so pure. When we went there, it was just so incredible. It's below this mountain, and the rains feed it, and it's like hundreds of years ago. But anyway, it's delicious. It doesn't have that medicinal taste. Now, granted, it's 300 times stronger than sugar, so you just use a tiny bit.
Right.
But that's all these years now, 12 years later, that's the stevia we use. Yeah.
And I've been saying this forever. I try to educate my audience on this. When you are buying from an individual or individuals that have their name behind the brand, that are involved in the day-to-day, that go that extra mile to find the best, that's where you want to buy from. Because a big corporation, they wouldn't have traveled to China. They wouldn't have cared that there was aspartame. They would have went with that brand because it's cheap and because they know people are going to get addicted to it because it tastes better. And I think that just speaks to integrity. And those are the people, those are the brands you want to purchase from, are the ones that have their name behind it and the integrity behind it as well.
Well, I know you know what we're talking about. Now you have, your own supplements and everything. But I mean, for us, we receive so many sources. Like we were making a greens, moringa, and we could not find one that didn't have heavy metal in it.
Actually, we did find a farm, and it was so wonderful, and we had it tested every time, but it was somehow, even though it was an organic farm, there was one season, it must have been something in the wind, where it actually tested above a certain amount that we weren't comfortable with. And even though we'd had it all in our bags, all printed and everything, we just chucked it.
We wouldn't sell them. And so, it's a big thing in the supplement industry. There are heavy metals in there, and please write to your company and find out what's in there, because it's a real thing.
It's very real. It's very real. And even though we don't ever want the FDA putting their sticky fingers into the supplement industry, the bottom line is what you see on the label is not always what's in it. So, just even buying from a reputable source, buying from an individually owned company, a family owned company, that's the way to go. It just is. That's my
well, these are the things we
public
feed
service
our
announcement
children and our grandchildren. And if
we don't do anything unless we're doing it and it's in our own cupboards. We're not going to do it.
Right. Yeah. Right. Exactly. Well, before I let you ladies go, I want to circle back to this YouTube workout channel membership that you have now. Talk to the audience about that, because I know a lot of my patients, my listeners will be interested in this, because I love it.
It's called Tribe Healthy.
Tribe, TRIB.
Yeah. And basically we just have Pearl. She does push 25s so
25
far.
minutes.
And I do a strong 45.
And we've got a fit 10
and a fit 10, and we have an ex-Marine guy who also he's the one that does our fit 10s. We're going to be coming up with different things too, but we're basically trying to do workouts that turn our bodies into burning bodies. So they're very glute focused. The workouts are really all about building that biggest bank of metabolic tissue. We don't want just to have that bank empty. We want to fill it with fuel burning
but we try to, for me, I'm all minimalist. I just have dumbbells and that's all I do. Whereas Serene, uses some more equipment, but we have modifications, whether you're beginner, intermediate, whatever. I mean, you could probably go on that. You would love Serene's. She's for like the people that are just super into it and it's their passion. Whereas my workouts are kind of more like, come on, you can do this. Let's start here.
Mine scientific arse.
Yeah, scientific arse. That's what I call her, because they're about
that's off camera.
Building a glute.
Well, no, I'm going to do both because, I mean, sometimes it just sucks trying to think of a workout, even though I've been doing this my whole life, I'll get into the gym like, what am I going to do today? So to have somebody to follow, I think is key. I think that helps everyone. I don't care what level of fitness you are. To have someone to follow helps tremendously.
Yes. Well, we've only just started. So we're
we've been there about 2 or 3 months, but it's filling up. We'll have 12 sessions of each coming up. And then I've got the rebounding. I love to rebound. So that's my cardio. I love to walk and rebounding.
Yeah.
So I've got rebounding sessions in there, on my other days and stuff. So it's a lot of fun.
And we're going to fill it up more. with some young people's workouts too,
Because
our
we're so
sons.
old.
No, but like our, we want it to for the tribe, for all ages
Yeah.
and stages. And so we have some young sons that are all buff and brawny.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, let them do
Yeah.
those ones. Yeah.
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 But even just having the ex-Marine there to stand there and look pretty, us ladies will like that.
Oh,
Yeah,
so.
yeah, that's
but-
right. Yeah.
Well, you ladies have been amazing. I love you both to death. I've learned, I've reconnected with some old ways that I used to do that I'm going to incorporate back in. I'm going to send so many people to your program. So can you tell people where they can find you? We're going to link it in the show notes as well. But even someone that wants to go through your programs, do you have those ongoing as well?
I mean, you know what? We have our books. We're just
Yeah.
like nerdy book writers. We're authors in our souls, and we've tried to be really good influencers,
Oh my goodness, we're being
we
told
don't
by
do
our
it.
You are,
business
yes.
people like, you got to get in front of that social media, and it's just, it doesn't happen.
We do podcasts, but yeah, I mean, our books, and we got the new one coming. But if you go to trimhealthymama.com, that's our official website. But our Facebook groups is where the action happens. We have a Facebook group of over 250,000 women just all talking health and talking about you, Dr. Amy,
Yeah.
actually. They're talking about you right now because of the thyroid. And but yeah, you can go to our main Trim Healthy group on Facebook, and we're on Instagram. Where are those places? Yeah.
You're all the places. Yeah. We'll link it all. We'll link it all. But I love it. I just love having you ladies on here. I would love to have you back, especially when the new book comes
yeah.
out. I'm super excited. So
Yay.
thank you so much for your time today and your wisdom and your experience.
Thank you. It's an
Thank
honor to
you.
be here
It's
because
definitely
we
an
are major binge watching fans of yours too.
And ditto right back at you.